Joey, I'm in a bit of a spooky room right now. Can you explain to us why we're here today? What are we talking about?
Andre, we are here because I got to play an hour of the Callisto Protocol, which is kind of a spiritual sequel to Dead Space. Got some developers involved in it. It's a very spooky science fiction game coming out on the holiday season, December 2nd. So if you're looking for those holiday vibes, man, it's the Callisto Protocol right there.
Well, it's a preview getting out, right around Halloween time. So,
yes.
All right, Joey, I'm a huge Dead Space fan. I love the setting, I love the horror, it's all great stuff. How much like Dead Space is this game? Like, are you in space? Are you fighting aliens? What's the overall deal here?
So I would say aesthetically, it definitely has the Dead Space vibe going for it. It's set on a prison in outer space on the Jupiter moon Callisto. You play as a prisoner played by America's heartthrob, Josh Duhamel, and he is basically trying to go through this prison, trying to escape it because it's been infected by a giant virus, like this virus that takes a hold of people and turns them into freaks of nature, pretty much. So yeah, good luck trying to survive that mess.
Yeah, I would not want to deal with that, especially based after what we dealt with in real life for the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so how's the actual action feel like? Is the moment-to-moment gameplay similar to Dead Space, where you're going through like creepy corridors and like you have monsters popping out of like air vents or whatever? Is there like some kind of like dismemberment system here? Like you mentioned, it's basically a spiritual successor to Dead Space. So how much like Dead Space is it actually feeling when it comes to the combat? And
it's quite different because I don't want to say it's slower than Dead Space. At least the character walking, he feels slower than Isaac Clarke, which isn't really a bad thing because the levels aren't humongous and you still have a sprint button anyway, so that's really not a problem there. But then when we get to the combat, that's where things are, I would say, almost completely different from Dead Space because it's more melee focused. You're still equipped with guns, but the developers emphasize to us that saving your ammunition is key to survival here. So it leans way more into the survival horror aspects. Playing Dead Space 1, you kind of got that sense too that you had to save your ammo, but I got it more so here. But anyways, you're equipped with a gun from the very beginning. It's just a standard pistol. It's not like a saw that you cut limbs off with. Although there is limb dismemberment, it's not the main focus of the game. Here, you are encouraged to fight these enemies with your baton. And when you get a successful combo, or when an enemy is stunned rather, the weapon automatically locks onto their weak point. Maybe their head, or maybe a part of their leg, and it makes the melee combat feel more satisfying, at least what I got to play of it. But there's something weird about it though, and that's that dodging the attacks dodging and blocking is all mapped to the left stick, not any other button. And it's the same stick you use to move.
I don't understand how that works. If you're using the left stick to move, like, are you clicking it in to dodge, or are they activated based on whatever the enemy's doing? How's that work exactly?
When you notice an enemy is about to attack, like they get their arm out, you flick the left stick to the left or to the right to dodge their attack.
Like Smash Brothers or something?
Kind of like that. It's very odd. And what's even weirder is that there is a block. You can block, but you have to hold the left stick back. And it's just like your enemy is still, your protagonist is still moving. It helps that he moves slow, so it's not like it's too jarring, and I can see myself getting used to it. But even now, it's tough to explain. It's kind of like The Last of Us Part 2, you could dodge with L1, and that was just so good. Here now it's all mapped to the left stick, so that's kind of an interesting design choice, I would say.
Yeah, it felt very smooth in The Last of Us, but that's not the case here, it's sounding like.
It's not.
So did it interrupt the flow of the combat in your experience?
I died a lot at first, trying to figure out how the dodging works. Because, yeah, sometimes my character would just move and not do anything. I guess it was about flicking it, like, at the right time. I want to say I did kind of get used to it as I kept playing, but also I didn't want to get too close to the enemies that came up later because, man, they just got freakier and freakier as I played. And yeah, this game is tougher than Dead Space, I can tell you right off the bat.
Is it, yeah, so the enemies are stronger in this case, or are they more
stronger,
in your face?
Yeah, they got stronger, and they also morphed into different sorts of enemies. So here's also where a big Dead Space comparison comes in. There was a part where I got to this room where it says, written in blood on the wall, shoot the tentacles. Which is not unlike, yeah, which is not unlike the beginning of Dead Space 1, where it says shoot the limbs off. So there are some enemies you encounter their tentacles come out of their chests, and they just start wiggling around. And you need to shoot those tentacles off, because if you don't, they'll morph into an even stronger enemy. Like a big brute with big arms, and they become instantly tougher. So there's kind of a motivation there to hustle, get those tentacles off before they turn into something that you really won't be able to fight.
Yeah, that sounds a little scary. So, I guess, yeah, how scary was it? Did you find yourself were there jump scares? Were you frightened at all? I know you were at a preview event, so that might have lessened the fear a little bit. I'm sure you were in a bright room while playing this.
Actually, no, they put us in a very dark room.
Oh, awesome. Good.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, but, I never really get scared by video games anymore. It's kind of my own thing, but I still appreciate horrific and scary vibes to games more so than like jump scares. And though there are quite a bit of jump scares in this preview build, none that really scared me too much because I saw them coming, it's still got a dreadful atmosphere. Dead Space was also kind of reminiscent of John Carpenter's The Thing. This also kind of gave me The Thing vibes just from these creatures, and it's very dark. Not so dark where you can't see anything. Actually, that brings me to another point. I did get lost at some point because it asked me to follow a red pipe, but I was already following a red pipe. I didn't know I had to transition to a different red pipe after that. But then I figured out that the path you're supposed to follow is lit. You see like lights coming out of air vents and such. So that was kind of a problem I had here with this demo. But hopefully like the final game is a bit less obtuse in its level design. But that was like, I only got lost one time out of my 1 hour I played. And for some reason, I was like the first person in my room that beat the demo. I was like, oh, really? I got lost for like 20 minutes there. As much as I felt mixed a bit because of the stuff with combat and the stuff with getting lost in the level, I felt like that those were kind of weak parts of the demo that I played, but I still came away wanting to play more of it because it was very interesting.
Yeah, what compelled you about it? What did you find compelling about the experience?
It was near the end where I was put into a room with a bunch of enemies. And this is a game where if there's 2 enemies in front of you, it's a serious challenge. It's not like Dead Space where, oh, there's like 3 or 4 mutants coming at me, I'll just chop their limbs off. No, it's very much focused on attacking one enemy at a time and also saving your ammo. I really wanted to come back to the Callisto Protocol when they put me into a room with like 5 enemies, maybe 6. It was a lot of enemies, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it out of this. Here's what happened. Here's what I did. I realized that I had a tool which let me telepathically, I don't want to say telepathically, it's science, but I could basically levitate enemies with it. There's still a cooldown. You couldn't hold them as much as you want and throw them as much as you want, right? There was hazards in this area. Like there were fans, like big fans twirling fast. There was a mechanism that was rotating super fast too in the center. I realized I could throw them into those hazards. And I'm just like, yes, baby. This is creative combat right here. Yeah, I realized then and there that it was all about thinking outside of the box with this game. And it was too bad that was near the end of the demo too, because it was at that point I said, I want to play more, man.
They had to tease off that ability, I guess. But I saw in the trailer, like, one of the cool things was at one point the character like tosses the enemy. I don't know if it was like, using that same ability, but into some kind of machine, it just gets destroyed instantly. Yeah. So is there like a lot of environmental interaction in this case?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of not just environmental interaction, but those enemies can get killed by those environmental hazards. That means so can you too, which makes for some very creative deaths. They showed off this part at the opening night live where you're sliding down a waterfall. And man, if you got hit by one of those fans, it was disgusting. Like I can't even show it here. We'll get demonetized. But
oh man.
Yeah, and that was something it's different when you play games at a preview event because you're thrown like right into the middle. And even though they showed us a little video at the beginning which showed us how to play the game, I did not really utilize that that levitation ability as much as I did until near the end, simply because I forgot that it was there. And had I known that, maybe combat would have been a bit easier, but it's not so much that it feels like a get out of jail free card, Did you get a chance to see how the upgrade system works at all in the game? Or there's a little vending machine. It's really cool too. It's not unlike Dead Space, but they actually show your items getting upgraded through like a 3D printer, and it's really cool. I mainly just upgraded my electric baton, its swinging ability, its like swinging speed, the length of its shock ability where it can shock enemies because it's an electric baton. You upgrade through Callisto credits, which you find throughout the entire base. And it's definitely one of the reasons why I was looking forward to the Callisto Protocol, because I feel like we don't see a lot of these games as much as we used to. And that's part of the renaissance that we're in, Andre. Because we got the Callisto Protocol in December. Then we got the Dead Space remake in January. Right. Resident Evil 4 in March. Alan Wake 2. We're coming back to the golden years of survival horror.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a survival horror fan. So, based on what you played, would you say could this game be a classic, Joey? Could it be up there with the Dead Spaces and Resident Evils, or are you still a little hesitant on it in general?
I don't want to say it's gonna be like Game of the Year material. It could potentially be a classic, I think. Even if it relies heavily on like Dead Space nostalgia, but I still think it does a whole lot different to separate itself from Dead Space. And if the demo was a bit rough in spots, but that was also because I was thrown in like into episode 3 out of I don't know how many, but it's different when you play games from the very beginning and you learn organically rather than just watching a video from the beginning. So so I wonder how the combat's going to work when I start from the beginning. That's the only thing I'm a bit shaky on, is basically the dodging system. There's still good ideas in the combat, but I don't know how I'm going to survive if I have to dodge with the same button I move with.
It's all part of the horror there, Joey. You gotta figure it out. Dead Space, I remember playing Dead Space initially, and that game was terrifying for me, so I don't know if I can handle Callisto Protocol, but we'll see. So, Joey, if there's one thing you took away from this demo, what is it? Like, is there anything else you want our audience to know to really drive home about this game?
Even if you're not super big on survival horror, if you're into like just third-person action-adventure games, I feel like you'd still be a fan of Callisto Protocol. Like if you're a fan of The Last of Us or even Uncharted to an extent, maybe this would be kind of your bag, because it's very action-oriented, even if it does have those horror elements. So yeah, I'd say maybe keep your eyes on it if you're a fan of that genre and not so much the survival horror genre.
Final question. How many audio logs did you come across?
Maybe 4.
Okay, I didn't even know what the game had them, but of course it had to.
I love that you assumed that, because you are so right.
That's right. Hey, Joey, thanks for telling us all about the Callisto Protocol. When's it out exactly?
December 2nd on pretty much every platform except the Switch, which we should all be used to by now.
All right, pretty soon. So stay tuned to GameXplain for possibly more on this game in the near future, and everything else gaming here as well. Catch you later, everyone.